Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. After installing March 23 feature drop on my 7 Pro, I started to see some differences in the camera. When you take a look at the update release notes, it clearly mentions general improvements for camera stability and the performance in certain conditions, and other improvements for the color accuracy and exposure specific to the front camera. The general improvements include all Pixel models with the Tensor chip, starting from the Pixel 6 up to the 7 Pro, while the front camera improvements are specific to the 7 and 7 Pro only. For me to show you the differences, I collected some of the photos I used in my previous comparisons and tried to mimic the same exact scenario after the update. I wore the same clothes, went to the same places, took the photos at the same time, and tried to match the angle as much as I could. So let me show you what are the differences I found. First things first, I used Gcam version 8.8 with March update, so it's either the system or Gcam is the reason behind the differences, but it's worth noting that March update was released for the Pixel 7 Pro before Gcam 8.8. So maybe Gcam is not related. Anyways, I will start with the morning portrait photos, and here's the first shot. Both look identical in terms of colors and HDR, but when I zoom on my face, you will notice that Google tuned down the software sharpening, as the wrinkles around my eyes are less prominent, same as the areas around my beard. Secondly, the skin tone is more yellow and my face looks brighter. And one of the things I usually notice with Pixel phones is how it modifies the face shape, and that's why it looks narrower in Feb update photo, which is no longer the case after March update. And finally, in this specific shot, I see better subject isolation around my ears and hair. It depends on your personal taste which one you like more, but I personally prefer how I look in March update photo because of the less sharpening, better face exposure, and more accurate face shape. Moving to the 2x portraits, and the same differences I mentioned apply here. The same less software sharpening, more exposure for the dark side of my face, and a slightly more yellow skin tone. I'm glad that Google listened to the feedback and tuned down the software sharpening in portraits, as the faces look much better now. But there is one more improvement I found in this photo, which is the better skin exposure under direct sunlight. When you look at my left arm in Feb photo, it was slightly overexposed, but now it did balance this really well. And it seems like Google applied the same changes we saw in portraits to selfies. In this example photo, everything looked almost identical except my face. It has the same less software sharpening, yellowish skin tone, and more exposure, same as portraits. So please let me know in the comments if you like the new image processing or you prefer the old way. So these are all the differences I spotted in morning photos. Now it's time for the night. And I will start with the normal landscape shots, and here's the first one. Right off the bat in March photo, you will see a much darker sky with less noise, and the shadows are brighter with more vivid colors, so you can clearly see the details in the trees, and that makes the image look much better in my opinion, as it gives more night vibes, plus it looks a lot cleaner. I have another example to support the idea. Look at how much darker is the sky in March photo, so it looks more realistic, less noisy, and more like a night shot. The only downside is the flares are now more prominent because of the darker sky, but beside the flares, I love the overall look of March photo, especially when you look at the background. So I kept trying the camera after March update and took some amazing night photos that you should see. This photo looks so good as it handled the bright signs really well. The contrast, the white balance, and the exposure are all on point. It also looks so clean without any noise. I've never taken a great night shot like this one before March update. But let me show you even more. This photo shows how the darker sky made the scene looks much better. Plus it did handle 3 different levels of light really well: the bright signs, the dark skies, and the medium light of the buildings and the trees. So let me play a quick slideshow for the rest of the photos I took after March update. Now let's talk about the night selfies, and there is a dramatic change in the look this time. Both were taken with night sight, and you can see how much cooler is the night selfie after March update. If you watched my recent camera comparison between 8 different Pixel models starting from the 2XL up to the latest one, you will find that the 7 Pro is now closer to the older models with the Snapdragon processors in how the selfies look. And as an example, here's the one I took with the Pixel 4 XL. The 7 Pro shot is not as cool or bright as the 4 XL, but also it's not too warm as it used to be before March update, so it's a kind of a middle ground between the two. And the same applies to the selfie portraits. Other than this, I didn't find any major differences to talk about. Finally, we have the back camera portraits with night sight. And this time March update made the images warmer than before, which is the opposite to what happened with the front camera. I personally prefer the cooler tone of Feb update, but beside the white balance, March update has much better details, as my face is not too soft like the old one, and it's not too sharpened either. So it's more balanced. Moving to the 2x portraits, and the old photo makes my face look like a red tomato. The exposure is too low and there is almost no details. While March update did a much better job in everything except for the subject isolation, which was better in the older one. So overall, the night portraits got a lot of improvements after March update. So I think that's pretty much it. Those are the differences I spotted. I know the photos are not perfectly the same, but they are close enough to show you what are these differences. So please let me know in the comments, do you agree with me? Do you see the same differences from your Pixel camera, or you think it works exactly the same? But for now, thanks so much for watching, and see you the next video.